Today we go over one of Sacramento's top areas, neighborhoods, Arden-Arcade. It's one of those areas you probably have never heard about, and if you are making the move to Sacramento, California, you definitely need to know about it. Today we uncover the location, price point, schools, and why people are loving Arden-Arcade. Let's get into the video right now. As always, I got Aaron. So Aaron, we're talking a little Arden-Arcade. What do you think of the area?
I know the area really well. I mean, I work off of Howe Avenue. I don't live too far from the area, and I go through there all the time for various things. So it's a popular area. I mean, I work with over the years a lot of clients that have bought in that area. You know, you're basically talking the 95864. And there's a lot of diversity in the area, which I know we're going to dive into, but like some parts of Sacramento, all the home prices are kind of in the same price point or the same style or whatever. And, Arden Park, Arden-Arcade, all that, you kind of get a mix of everything.
Well, for me, one of the things I like about the area specifically, too, is in the age we're living in here in Sacramento, we have a lot of builders building some homes, and the density tends to be a little tight.
Yep.
These homes are kind of like, a lot of these houses come on some nice big chunks of land, near the water. They kind of have this kind of like very, very nice kind of like old school kind of vibe to them. They have the cute, like as you can tell right here in this Google map thing, you see all the trees turning their colors, really, really nice tree lined streets, no Mellorews. Really, really kind of cute. There's no new home built in here, man. This is like old school Sacramento. I often tell people too, there are some areas like the Sierra Oakses, Arden-Arcade, the areas that for the most part were the suburbs back in the day. And then all of a sudden they kept on going further back to Fair Oaks, further back to Folsom. But this is a spot where back in the day, if someone worked downtown, they're saying, I don't want to be here. I want to go somewhere with a little bit more land, have a bigger home. And Arden-Arcade was kind of born. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. It was kind of like like the executive area of town, back in I'd say like the 50s through the 70s. A lot of those houses were originally built around, like 60s, 70s, which is why the lots are so big and the trees are so, nice and grown and all that compared to, you go into a brand new neighborhood and, there's barely a bush in the yard. So definitely a lot of history there for sure.
Some of the houses, though, when you go in there, they do give you a little bit of the Brady Bunch vibe, the paneling, the stuff and everything too. But the thing you have to remember too is living like near the water, living, kind of, in this type of area. It's for me, I think the market's a little soft there just because I think a lot of the focus is on Folsom. I think a lot of the focus is on El Dorado Hills. So I like this area specifically like now because I don't think a lot of people who are moving into the area know about this area, right? They don't really know about this spot. It's kind of one of those things that a lot of people from Sacramento know about this area, so they love this area. But a lot of people moving in the area are kind of like Granite Bay, Folsom, and everything too. So I like this area, and I think for right now, when you see the A's come to town, the development of downtown, areas like the Arden-Arcade could be a good spot to buy into, don't you think?
Oh yeah, and I feel like that's always been a pretty solid area in town to buy into. It's center of everything for the most part. So, depending on, you and I talk a lot about, if you're considering moving to the area, one of the things that you have to, consider, and like I put it at the top of the list, is like, where do you plan on spending most of your time when you're not at your house? Where are you going to work at? Where are your friends, family, activities, all those things? And the thing that I like about this part of town is you're centralized to everything. So, you're kind of the same distance from the airport that you are from the lake, that you are from, going to various spots. So it's very convenient in terms of that, especially if you're somebody that, goes to a lot of places. Like I don't live far from there. I live near the college, which is just like one zip code over. And the reason that I chose to buy over there when I did was because I was a regional manager for a mortgage company and I had to drive all over God's green earth every day. And I wanted to be somewhere that was centralized near the freeways, all that stuff. So from like a location standpoint, it's definitely a really good area.
Well, you got Carmichael right there. You got Rosemont. You got some heavy hitters too, like Sierra Oaks is right on the tip, like right there too. Will Hagen, like, I mean, you just have some really like nice spots in there too. And I think, like I said, a lot of people aren't really looking at it right now, but here we have like a map. This is kind of how long it takes to get to downtown. I think this might be a little exaggerated. Probably get to downtown maybe like 18 minutes. Depending on where you live in the Arden-Arcade area. One of the things also Aaron mentioned to me is that Arden very much fluctuates with price point, right? There are some areas in Arden, like in the Arden-Arcade area, where you can get something for like, $450 even. And there's some areas in the Arden-Arcade area, especially the Arden Park area, where you can go all the way up to like $3-4 million, which we will show in this video. Like I said, guys, this video, we're going to break it down. We're going location, we're going schools, we're going jobs, we're going like everything about Arden-Arcade. So if you've maybe been watching this channel and you've seen Folsom and you're like, wow, I know Folsom. Okay, I know Roseville. This is a spot, man. This is locals. This is like people who know Sacramento know this spot. So a lot of people moving into the area, guys. This could be a spot now that resale is a little bit sluggish that you might want to jump into or even just take a look at it. Community vibe, tree-lined streets, houses set back, cute neighborhood, especially for like the seasons like Halloween. I like the area myself. All right, so here we go towards downtown. Now, one of the main reasons why you're seeing it kind of be a little bit further from downtown than you might thought, because Arden-Arcade was also set up to be this kind of like this little escape from downtown, right? It was like, hey, I work downtown, but I really want to drive a little bit away from downtown and go there. And it's just gotten a little, the 50 is a little bit of a bear right now with all the construction. What do you think as far as getting downtown? This says 21 minutes. I think you could probably do it in 18. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've had like what seems like never ending construction on Highway 50 and the expansion of the 50 and all that stuff. The reason why it can take longer to get around places if you're coming from, and you, by the way, you've got the map at like the very center of Arden-Arcade. So depending on where you actually live could be more or less, but it's a ton of stop signs and street lights. In order for you to get onto the freeway, basically, you got to go up Watt Avenue, north or south to either get to the 80 or to the 5. And depending on, if you're doing that during rush hour traffic, it's going to suck because you're going to have a bunch of stoplights and all that stuff because there are a ton of businesses all through that area. And I'm not talking about, like Intel or, big giant mega corporations, although there are some big companies out there. There is a slew of like all your little mom and pop shop kind of things that you could think of. There's a ton of strip malls through there. There's a ton of little restaurants, barber shops, all the above that you would expect to find like in a local area. There's a ton of that. So depending on what time of the day you're doing it, it can take you a little bit of time. I know for me personally, when I'm planning on basically having to make the commute, and go through that, I'm either going to leave early, like leave before the rush hour, or I'm going to plan my appointments to where I'm leaving right after the rush hour, right after everybody's gotten to work and dropped the kids off at school. And then all of a sudden it's like a 15-minute drive. But if you got to deal with the traffic, it can, build up on you.
You are right, though. The pockets of like back streets, stoplights, the little malls here. And it's kind of, it is a little bit challenging at times, especially with the traffic. I think Sacramento right now is trying to manage the traffic, but a lot of areas like we have like the Arden-Arcade area and everything too, the pocket areas, everything too. We have a lot of backstreet traffic. And because there's a lot of people moving into the area, traffic can even get worse. And like you said here, you have like, if you're a golfer, you got the Del Paso Country Club, which a realtor buddy of mine, Sydney, absolutely lives there. You got kind of everything here, if you're looking for a spot where you want to be kind of like, I don't know, kind of in the center of everything, if you want to be somewhere like set back, but you also want to be close to stores. You don't really have to go past Arcade to do the shopping. I think we over here have also the Arden Fair Mall. You kind of have everything right there. So you don't have to it's going to maybe take you a little while to get to downtown. And it might even take you a little while to get to the airport, which honestly, this isn't that bad as far as going to the airport here. 27 minutes. You Bay Area people know this is a blessing comparatively
Yeah.
towards the traffic in the Bay Area. But I mean, really nice. I mean, a lot of people who live in the Arden-Arcade area just stay there. I mean, the shopping's right
Sure.
there. I mean, Piatti's is over there. I mean, you got the Ruth Chris, I think, as well too. Where are the stores you like to hit when you're
Oh
down
yeah.
there?
Oh, well, so here's a not as well-known spot, but this spot's awesome. If anybody likes Thai food, Lemongrass is probably the best Thai spot in all of Sacramento. Super nice. And I don't know, there's quite a few little restaurants. One of the spots my wife and I like going to is right on the corner of Watt and Fair Oaks, Mas Taco. There's a
Oh
couple
yeah.
of those in town. I think they got one in Folsom actually at the Palladio, but you got a ton of little restaurants like that. Um, Gosh, there's so many things over there that come to mind. You got Wally's Pizza. There's like a bunch of just like solid spots that have been around for decades that, are just good to go eat or shop at. And there's actually been a lot of revitalization at the Arden Fair Mall and like all the big box stores kind of that are like off of Arden a little bit from there. So you
Yeah.
do have access to shopping and stuff like that if if you need to go do that kind of thing. But you also have a Whole Foods. I think it's the only Whole Foods in the Sacramento area, at least like in Sacramento proper. And that's on Arden and Eastern. And there's a real popular shopping center over there. That's actually where I get my haircut at. My girl Dang, she's over there. So there's a bunch of local stuff, but like I said earlier, it's a bunch of stop signs and street lights. So depending on the time of day and all that, it can take you a bit of time if you got to do a commute somewhere.
That's one of the things too. Also, when you guys are moving to the area, being close to freeway access, like it's vital nowadays in Sacramento because we're growing like crazy. A lot of times, like if you got to go down streets like Hazel or Sunrise, understand that those things during like 5 o'clock rush hour time or 9 a.m. Those things just are like this. Now, I'm not saying it compares to the Bay Area, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, I'm working in Folsom, so I'm going to be moving over to Rockland. Don't do that to yourself. It can be a little bit brutal. But the Arden-Arcade area, like I said, I mean, yeah, there is a little bit of strip mall driving, but for the most part, if you live in some of these pockets, like we're going to get into at Arden Park, it's just beautiful. It's hilly, it's nice. The houses are set back, they're beautiful. I mean, what do you think to get you in there it would cost?
Well, that's the thing about 95864 is there are so many different little neighborhoods. I mean, if we're talking about Arden Park specifically, that little box you carved out there, I'm thinking, somewhere like entry level. If you're on the like Watt Avenue side, you're going to maybe be like 700s. But you can easily get into the $1 million range. And then any of the houses that are off of Fair Oaks Boulevard, those are going to be like multi-million-dollar homes. It's kind of crazy how the neighborhood is where it's, you've got kind of like old ranch style homes. And then you've got like multi-million-dollar mansions. So there's kind of something for everybody, but it's definitely, for the most part, more upscale than it is like entry level, I would say, in that zip code.
Yeah, it is interesting how you see a lot of these houses, kind of like the diversity of price. It's just nuts. You got this like $597, and then right underneath it, you have something under 5 million, or between 4.5 million. But the area is nice. I mean, some of these houses are just crazy. I mean, like like this one with like a nice chunk of land. You got the gated access and everything too. I mean, for me, like I said, if you're looking for like OG old school Sacramento, if you're looking for that setback, because here's the thing for me also is a lot of people will go to Toll Brothers, and I like Toll Brothers, don't get me wrong, but like, a lot of people will love these Toll Brothers home. And the one thing that I'm always telling people too is the idea that like old school, like you need that front yard of driveway space, the drive up spot, the curb appeal, the boom. And a lot of the Toll Brothers homes are like maybe, 10 feet from the curb if they're lucky. And so this is something like you see a lot of these houses where you have it set back. Now, the benefit of something like that, there's pros and cons, of course. The pro is you have your more privacy, right? People can't just walk through the street and say, hey, how's it going? This is something that if you are someone who value your privacy, security, you know what I mean, you're set back, which is really, really nice. And if you see even the houses, even, a house that like, let's see some of these things, like, even something like this, it still is relatively set back. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yeah.
you do definitely have that kind of like security, privacy, setback. I like that myself because I'm a big fan of putting up the Halloween decorations, that kind of stuff too. And I like the setback vibe of it. And then you have some of these crazy ones. Look at this. Look at this house.
I know.
This,
bonkers.
look at that. This is just nuts. And the funny thing is, for a lot of people, they'll look at this and go, this is an amazing house, but why is it not in Folsom? Why is it not in El Dorado Hills? What's going on here? Guys, every area, like in the Sacramento area, has their community, their little areas where you have this just crazy $1 million houses. Fair Oaks houses, Carmichael has it, Orangevale, Woodbridge. I mean, like they have their areas. And so you can find this. And a lot of people who maybe work at UC Davis Medical Center, maybe downtown, maybe like the idea of being surrounded by trees, established neighborhood, and Folsom just doesn't cut it. Or El Dorado Hills, they don't want to be on like PG&E, which you all will be if you're in Placer County, El Dorado County, or they just like this better. So I don't know. What do you think is like, as far as you, who do you think like the Arden-Arcade? Let's go bigger. Who do you think it's for?
I think it's depending on your price point, of course, but I think that it's an area where it's good for families. The schools, there's a lot of schools over there, and there's some of the best high schools in the area. You've got Rio Americano, you got Jesuit, you got El Camino High. What else is over there? There's Mira Loma and one other high school, I believe. And then you've got a bunch of like elementary and middle schools. They just redid the middle school. So there's a bunch of revitalization, I guess you could call it, reinvestment or whatever in the schools over there. And then, we've mentioned this quite a few times, but like the trees, like there's something to be said for, when you're driving through or walking through your neighborhood and there's trees everywhere versus like driving through and all you're looking at is houses basically, which is kind of what you get a lot when you get out into the kind of the burbs of, Folsom or Elk Grove or whatever. And so I would say that like, if you go through these neighborhoods, you're going to see a lot of people walking their dogs, pushing strollers, all that stuff. 'Cause it's enjoyable being out there. But it's also, I would say that another, category of people that I would fall under is like, if you want to be closer to everything, but you still want to live like in a neighborhood versus living in like, East Sac or Midtown or something where it's just busier and less kid friendly, basically. So you definitely got the family vibe going on over there. But you're close to a lot of stuff. So, for folks that work downtown, doctors, attorneys, medical professionals, all that stuff, that'd be a super hot neighborhood for them. Easy commute, all that stuff.
For me, I'm thinking to myself, like, you're looking for someone who maybe loves, golf, because it has his own club over there. I would say
Sure.
for someone who kind of likes, because like I said, a lot of times in Sacramento, a lot of people are turned off by this like master plan community vibe, right? They want the old style kind of homes. And I think that that's what you're going to find in like the Arden area, right? You're going to see like a lot of the ranch style homes, even the bigger ones. Like you're going to see even large, huge ranch style, mid-century modern is there and everything too.
Yep.
I'd say for someone who basically likes being close to like nature, likes trees, wants to be close to American River. I mean, because you're going to see that there's like walking trails and everything all around it. Wants that kind of community vibe. Because, the people that I know that live in those areas, everyone kind of knows everybody. I mean, they have their get-togethers, they close down their parks and their streets, and they have their barbecues and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, for me, I like the area. And like you said, like if you look here, I mean, there's trees like everywhere. And one of the things I do think that in other areas, like, the like Folsom Ranches, the Whitney Ranches and all that stuff too, like we still haven't hit that age of maturity with the trees with like, that yet. I mean, eventually, of course it will be, but if you're looking for something kind of a little older, a little bit more unique, a little bit more that like is set back. Again, price ranges fluctuate in this area too, depending on where you want to buy. I would also advise that it definitely is a street to street area,
For sure.
depending on how close you are to the strip malls and all this stuff too. I would say also the funny thing about this area is that Gold River is in San Juan Unified. Is that weird?
Interesting. That is
Yeah.
kind of weird.
So that's Rio Americano. But I don't know. I like the area. I think it's cute. I think it's one of those spots if I was like looking to move into Sacramento and new homes weren't my jam. I was like, I don't care what rate they're offering, or maybe you're coming in as cash and you're saying like, where would I be looking that I should be looking other than the Folsoms, the El Dorado Hills and everything too. I like the Arden area specifically. I like Arden. I like the Sierra Oaks area. Wilhagen, some of these little pockets that you might not have ever heard about. Wilhagen's got the lake. It kind of has this kind of like a English kind of vibe to it for me. I don't know what it is. It just feels like you're going to, I don't know, do something there. But I think that there are these pocket communities that you definitely should be looking at. And like I said, pulling up again the houses that are for sale in that zip code. I mean, you got everything under the sun, but the one thing that you are going to notice that you're not seeing is Taylor Morrison, Lennar, KB. You're not seeing that stuff. You're seeing more of these unique kind of houses. Like this is the Bertolucci estate that my buddy Chris Balseri is doing. I mean, you're going to see something like this, something that is set back. It's got like a, extra land. Look at that garage right there. And it also has another piece of land with another garage. You're going to see something like this, a little bit different than what you'd see at maybe your Taylors and your Tolls and everything too, in an area that has been showing steady appreciation during the time. So for me, I like this type of thing. And I think this is something that is unique, is something that's kind of fading out in the Sacramento metro because we are seeing an abundance of new home building. Like Lennar's, like we've got like at least 7 or 8 Lennar communities in the Sacramento metro. Taylor, Toll Brothers got a big presence. And these type of houses have character, have land, and have the location, all the things I love. So for you, I mean, for me, I would say the person that wants a little bit more of that like established community, and they want something that, like they can get their little bit of the privacy going. They're like, but still have that community vibe. I like this area specifically. Any thoughts on like, as far as like the future of this area?
Well, I think that this area is always going to continue to do well. I mean, it's kind of like one of the focal points of the region. If you're going to live in the Sacramento area, I'd probably put this area like it's probably a top 10 neighborhood. Out of if you include Folsom, Elk Grove, all the different little sub areas. I'd point out to if you're watching this and you're thinking like, well, gosh, if I'm going to spend $1 million or 700,000 or 2 million or whatever, why would I want to buy a house that was built in the 70s or 60s or whatever? And I would point out to you that most likely, and obviously you got to look at all the listings, but when you look at these things, almost all of them, at least in the price points that we're discussing, they've been completely like gutted and remodeled and modernized and all that stuff. So it's much more of like the architecture of the home that's like a mid-century modern or whatever, not like you got like those old like wood square pergo floors and the pea green stove, like all that stuff's probably already been ripped out. And it's, like, look at this stuff's all top of the line, obviously. But, what my experience has been, and what I usually find when I see houses out there is, like what I'm saying, like it's been gutted and remodeled or updated over the years. Obviously, if you're looking at something on like the bottom end of the price scale, you might not have all that updating going on. But like some of these listings we're scrolling through, that are like $1 million or more, I'd be shocked if they're not updated. And I mean, yeah, even look at this thing, 525,
Yeah.
it's updated.
See, for me, it's kind of one of those things though. But people just because they're moving, they might be moving to Sacramento. They hear Folsom. You hear
Sure.
like Roseville. You don't hear about these type of niche areas that like you should be looking at. You should be exploring because like right now, because the spotlight is on Folsom, you're seeing areas that historically have shown great appreciation, great development, great growth, great like the name appeal, I guess you can call it, like are a little softer right now. And this is where I would be looking. I'd be looking like for me, I didn't buy in Folsom. I bought in Gold River. Why? Because Gold River wasn't going to get a lot of attention. And so for me, I like that specifically because I do think that there's a chance and opportunities to get a fantastic bang for your buck where people aren't looking and they should be looking, but their name Folsom, El Dorado Hills, Granite Bay is so overpowering that they're forgetting that maybe they should take a little time to look at like Arden-Arcade, Sierra Oaks, you know what I mean? Or areas like Southland Park. So, I think that this is something that if you're working with an experienced realtor, if you're working with an experienced like broker, like look at Aaron. I mean, we went through this entire video and he shared so much information. And this is stuff that honestly, if you're working with him as a lender, if you reach out to him, talk to him a little bit, he can give you a little bit of his knowledge, his kind of like opinions on areas as well too. So dynamic duo, reach out to us. Right, Aaron?
Absolutely. And I just point out the reason that you and I did this video on this area is that we got a bunch of requests from you guys to do that specifically. So if there's a neighborhood in the region that we haven't covered yet that you want us to do a deep dive on, put them in the comments below and we'll put it together.
Hopefully enjoy this video on Arden-Arcade. If you are moving to Sacramento, Arden-Arcade needs to be one of those spots you're taking a look at. Now we got another video for you right over there. Another location you need to know about if you're making the move to Sacramento. This is Mark. See you next video.